All right, I'm currently on the phone with Pat, and he's another musician that reached out about the current interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Pat Splinter. I play guitar and some backing vocals and dabble in lead vocals and stuff.
Awesome. Very brief. I like it. Okay, so let's kind of go back to where this all began. Tell me about how you first found music. What about it really kind of touched you and made you want to participate in?
Music in general. Wow. I think that it goes to the first album I ever listened to was Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. I was about 10 when that album came out, and my brother put headphones on my head and said, "Listen to On the Run, the On the Run." And so I was just like, "Oh, this is cool with the stereo effects," and I was just like, "This is really cool." But it was on an eight-track player, I don't know if you remember ever listened to eight tracks, but they have four tracks and it kind of goes chunk and stuff like that between it. So I had to actually listen. I couldn't rewind and go back and listen to the same song. So I wound up having to listen to like the rest of the album and stuff just to get back to On the Run. And in the process, I wound up just totally falling in love with that whole album. And it kind of became like my album to like put headphones on and write software to, or reduce, do do homework to in college and all that kind of stuff. So I'd probably listen to that album well over 10,000 times. Just it becomes white noise and stuff. But yeah, my brothers all had like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, the Beatles, James Gang, Janis Joplin, all that kind of stuff. And then when I got to be more like about 16, 17, I found the Sex Pistols, and I was like, "Oh man, this is so cool! I love this." And so and then MTV came out, and then MTV introduced me to like Adam and the Ants and 999, Oingo Boingo, all these The Cure. And I was in a small town in Wisconsin where you didn't, the radio had nothing but Boston and Aerosmith and the Stones on it, and it was really nice to have that open the world to me with MTV. And I always wanted to play guitar. I told my parents when I was like 13 I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and they were just like, "Well, we're not paying for that. No, there's no way." And I'd say that there's no way. And so I was always just kind of like, and my friend, a friend of mine, he was 11 at the time, and he picked up a guitar, and within about a year, he was playing Eddie Van Halen leads, and it was like, oh my God, and he was great at it. And I just went, oh, that's nothing I could ever do. And so I didn't pick up a guitar until I was like about 28, 91, and picked up an acoustic and a little piece of crap Washburn Lion guitar and stuff. And a friend of mine taught me the major and minor chords, and I could make a bar chord and I could make the open chords and stuff like that. But then I kept playing, I kept farting around, but I never really got anywhere till I was 55. Okay, so about like from 28 to 55, I was just having a guitar. I really learned how to play chords, but I never actually played a song from beginning to end. And then I was on Facebook, and this is about 5 years ago only. I found a thing called Rock Camp. Actually, I think it was called Rock Camp for Dads, is what it was. And I was in the Facebook thing, and they were talking about a camp they wanted to do where they're like, should we do a Poison camp or a Clash camp? And I'm like, are you kidding me? How could you even compare the Poison to the Clash? You're talking about a manufactured band versus the only band that matters. And stuff. So they sent me a thing out and said, hey, do you want to play rhythm guitar in this camp? And I went, oh, sure. I was actually in the Florida Keys with my son on a Boy Scout, high adventure trip, and I'm just like went okay, and I turned to my son and went, I'm going to play in a Clash band and play at Bunkers, and like in a month, he went, what? I went, holy crap! So I dove into this thing and showed up at the first practice, and I didn't have a tuner, I didn't have any pedals, I just had my Fender. By that time, I had a Fender Strat, and showed up with this Fender Strat, and I was trying to tune my Fender Strat with a iPhone app, and stuff, and it was just embarrassing. It was so but I was like, they have these things called like 101s, 201s, and 301s, and the 101s is like you can just kind of jam and play in the thing, but you don't play in front of an audience, right? And then the 201, you jam, you learn like about 5 or 6 songs, and then you play in front of a small group of people in the studio. And then the 301 was you get up in front of a stage and like 200 people and play a full set at like Bunkers. And they're like, and I went into the little, whatever they call it, a qualifier thing to make sure you can actually play. And I showed him that I could play. Hang on, my phone's zapping there. I could show him that I could play chords and stuff, and that I could probably do this Clash thing. And he kind of goes, "Do you sure you don't want to do the 1-on-1 or a 2-1 first?" And I said, "No. If I do those things, I'm not going to take this seriously. I need the fear of God into me, getting up on stage and screwing up royally." And so I wound up going from the first practice where I was just a spaz with this iPhone tuner and all this kind of stuff, And I didn't. It was just like we first time we showed up, I was supposed to play. I didn't even know you're supposed to come up prepared to play the song. I was so pathetic. But we were supposed to play London Calling and Janie Jones, which are two ridiculously easy songs. Now I look back on that, but I was just like, I had never played a song all the way through. And I got in there, and those guys all knew that it was my first time, and they've all been in bands for like 30 years. They all just did this camp, just for fun and meet other people and that kind of thing. That's most people who do these camps are just to meet other musicians and network and that kind of thing. And some people are like me who had never played before. So these guys took me under their wing. And the lead guitar guy, we did videos back and forth for about a month where I was just like this. And I had to learn how to play some little bit of ska, upbeat stuff, and all this stuff. And then actually I wound up getting like carpal tunnel cramping so bad because I was playing way too much. I was practicing probably about 5-6 hours a night. You know what I mean? And now I look back at that, that's this crazy amount. And but I went from like completely pathetic to playing a 12-song set at Bunkers and holding my own with those guys, And then that Clash band made the best of season, and then we went to Route 47 and played that, and I was much more comfortable and started doing backing vocals, and I got an outfit on, and I was on stage, and I had a blast. And then I got other people saw me on stage in the rock camp, and I got recruited to do a ska camp, and we did that. And then the Clash band started gigging, and so we gigged around for probably 2 or 3 years or so, right up until COVID. And then the ska band, we did a one-off with that. There's like 11 people, learned how to do all this upbeat ska stuff, which is really hard to learn for a white guy, And then I got into a bunch of different ones. I did like a Women of Rock one, did Iggy Pop, just did a Cure one recently. God, what else did I do? Did a Clash one with my son where I sang on that one. That was really fun. Actually, I signed up for vocals on that one and had everybody else. I said, make sure everybody sang at least one song because I like to have everybody. Because when I went to the ska band, that's the first time they asked me to sing lead vocals, and I went, I can't do that. And they said, yeah, you can. So I sang Wrong on Boyo, and so now I sing that song in the Clash band all the time. And I got this Clash thing, and I really pushed everybody to sing at least one song. So I sang 2 songs, and the other three other guys had never sang before, and I got them to all sing a song for their first time. And my son was in the band. He wound up singing 3 songs because he's in a band of his own. He's on Spotify, and he's called Wasted Sundays. And they're all original. And so he's a singer, and he was a guitar player, and he's the best. He was the best singer in the band. He's 20 years old with all these 50-year-old guys, But yeah, right now I'm gonna do a camp for Oingo Boingo. But yeah, let's see. I'm in a Sex Pistols cover band. That's called Snotty Rottens. We just played Palmer's recently. And then my Right Wyatt band is the Clash band. That's getting back together, and we're going to play with the Sex Pistols band at the Terminal Bar like a week from Saturday. I was in the Cure band, and that was going to play this Halloween bash that we're doing, but that kind of fell apart. I'm in a B-52s band. I sing lead vocals in that. Yeah, the Oingo Boingo one's going to be really fun. That was one of my favorite bands. I get to sing "Who Do You Want to Be Today" in that. But she's doing a lot of the Danny Elfman type stuff. All this, we're doing like the theme from The Simpsons, and This Is Halloween, and a lot of that kind of stuff. And then about like 6 Oingo Boingos tunes. So that's going to be really cool. But that's kind of where I went from, like, learning, hearing my first music at 10 years old up until now. I just turned 60, and I'm in like 3 or 4 different bands. And it's a total hobby for me. We never really play for money, but this one Palmer's gig, I made $40, and I was like, woo, paid for my beer. So that's kind of the mode I'm in.
Well, this has been an extremely easy interview for me. You went through pretty much everything that I was going to ask. You kind of just nailed it right on point. The only other couple questions that I have for you is in those early days of learning guitar, like when you first were getting into it after kind of realizing that you were going to have to kind of take it on yourself. Um, how did that process go? How did you decide how you were going to learn? Like, did you just go along and play with the like Pink Floyd, or did you learn tabs? Did you take private lessons? What was that process like for you?
I've had one lesson back in '91, and that was the guy who showed me how to play major and minor chords, and that's the only real lesson I had. When I did the first camp, Dave Severson was the lead guitar, and we exchanged videos back and forth, and he was really pretty much my Obi-Wan Kenobi in terms of a lot of things about like some simple things like if you're learning how to do something and you can't quite get it right, slow down and play it really, really slow. And then keep playing it slow until you can play it correctly, slowly, about like 15 times in a row, and then slowly speed it up. And then if you can play it that way, play it 15 times in a row, that speed. And then if you screw up, then you may have to back up and slow down. And that was, especially for playing lead and playing riffs, is quit trying to play it at the speed of the song and slow it down, and and make it like just at the beginning it was just making chord changes between a an F and a D or whatever, a D minor or whatever. Just slow it down and then slowly speed it up. Was probably the best advice I got from anybody.
So, as somebody that started in your late 20s, typically with musicians that have come into music at a very young age, they all feel like um, they have to break into the music industry at a very young age. And I've even seen people like on Reddit and things like that ask if like, it's too late for them because they're 30 years old. So you started when you were 28, I believe is what you said. Looking back on it, do you regret waiting so long, or do you think it worked out perfectly for you? What's kind of your position where you are now?
Oh, I totally wish my parents would have got me a guitar at 13. I would have totally got, if they would have gave me a guitar and, an amplifier and got me lessons, I would have been the guy sitting on the edge of the bed for like 8 hours, just going to it. And, when I didn't have really much to do but watch TV in a small town in Wausau, Wisconsin. And I would have just totally that would have been my, escape from the boredom of, hanging out. And there's really just, there's no music scene in Wausau really to speak of. All the bands I really loved seeing that I loved on MTV and stuff like that, they all played in Madison or Minneapolis. They never came to Wausau. So when we finally got cars and we actually made road trips down, then I started seeing, real concerts and stuff like that. But yeah, I would have loved to have started when I was, I've talked to a lot of guys that sit there and go, yeah, they're just miles ahead of me. And I ask them when they started playing, and they're all like, usually around 13 to like some of them are like 7, and I just go, I see it because it's so second nature to them,
So
So
a follow up question.
I
Oh, sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say I'm really only about 5 years in because I started when I was 28, but I really didn't. I hadn't played a complete song until 5 years ago. So I consider the last 5 years I just launched when I started doing camps and meeting other musicians and all that kind of stuff.
So the follow up question with that would be, do you feel like it was too late for you by the time you started? Like at that point, you should just not have done music.
God no. Well, it depends on what your goals are. I mean, if you're looking to become a pop star and you're looking to make a living out of it, well, yeah, I'm 60 years old. I'm not going to try to make a living out of this. There's no way. I'm looking at about 5 more years to write software, and I want to retire and get a house on a lake with a studio, and then have bands play and maybe own a bar, and bring bands in and have my own bands play a bar or something like that. That would be my thing. But when you start at like 13, like my friend did, he was playing Van Halen leads at 13. I could him a lot of their friends, like Eric Anderson. He got in and he played with Sheila E. and stuff like that, and he's out in California now. He's an editor in Hollywood and stuff. And then there's his buddy Rico Yeager. He was like a excellent. Those guys all played big time stuff in Wausau, like the fair and all that kind of stuff. And they had they had, records and stuff that they sold and all this stuff, but they never really made it anywhere outside of anywhere. But they're, they like he's a music director at the high school in Wausau, and he puts on pop concerts, and they still do music and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know anybody that really, made it huge or anything like that, stuff like that. But the ones that do, it's very rare I hear anybody that said, oh, I started in my 30s. I picked up a guitar and then I joined a band and it became big because the current big stuff is usually people who are in their 20s and 30s, or usually 20s or late teens even, so. But the
All
whole
right.
music
Well,
industry now is really kind of different. It's a whole very American Idol based instead of people coming up and getting record contracts and stuff like that. It's very very odd right now. So I forgot the other thing to mention is I'm a big acoustic player. I have a couple acoustic guitars and I play a lot of like Beatles and stuff like that. And we do open mics with a buddy of mine. We got a little thing called Jack was Flat where it's just a bass and a guitar. And I love playing my acoustic stuff. I can play a really good Blackbird, which I find is a really hard song to play. So that's my song I play when I impress somebody. So, but anyway.
well, so you mentioned a few projects that you're a part of. Where can people find those projects and check them out?
We all just have Facebook pages that you could just search them for. The Snotty Rottens has a Facebook page. Right Wyatt, it's like WRIGHT Wyatt. Instead of White Riot, it's Right Wyatt. The Oingo Boingo ones is starting up. 747s is the B-52s band. That's a one-off band. We're just going to play a Halloween show down at the Driftwood once a year. That's our thing, and we just have a costume party and invite other bands. And so the Oingo Boingo band's going to play this year. The Revo band, some other guys I know, they play that and stuff like that. But yeah, nothing. Most everything I've mentioned is all.
And so, what's a life lesson that you would like to share with other musicians, other than that it's never too late? What would you like to have people hear?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Never too late. I mean, there's people that I saw doing the first time they were ever playing, trying to put a set together, and they're in their 70s, and they're pulling it off. So I think also it's been really good for me. When I got 55, I started getting a little bit old in the tooth and hard to learn new software and stuff like that. I have the old dog, new tricks thing, and it really has opened up new neural pathways in my brain for learning new things, and it has helped my career actually as a software engineer is by working on all this music. And yeah, it's I say yeah, for sure, never too late. And it's all about, you get out of it as much as you put into it. If you're gonna commit to a band and you're gonna say, I'm gonna practice, show up for the practice. You say they're gonna work on these 3 songs, practice those 3 songs, work them as much as you can. You don't have to have every little detail, but the first time you get to the thing, be prepared. Don't show up and say, well, I haven't even listened to this song before. You got to show up prepared. And that's my big thing. And also being very generous. So like if somebody's a lead singer, have somebody else sing a lead song, and pick up a tambourine or whatever, stuff like that. Or if you're the lead guitar, try to get your rhythm guitar player, bringing them along and try to get them to play some licks and stuff like that, or move things around. I like to have as much sharing, as much growth out of everybody in a band that I can get. And that's the best. I think that's the best, most enjoyable band to be.